Hello and welcome to the first ever look at Home, a fantasy themed MMO currently in development. This short video will address a large number of topics ranging from classes and races to how PvP will be played and balanced. If you give us your time and patience, we have spent months selecting out the right information to release, so at the end of this video, you'll have a firm grasp on the core of Home. Foremost, we want to stress that we will not ask for any personal information, money donation, or financial support of any kind. All we hope is that you listen to the game design and ask yourself, is this something you would enjoy playing? We have decided to approach this game release in a direct and honest way. This video is meant to be informative, over colorful, and entertaining. We are replacing in-game footage and cinematics with detailed stake figures and displays of the game's mechanics. This path will set us apart, but above everything, we feel this change will be welcomed by the gaming community. The majority of gamers have become nomadic players. They move from game to game within a few months, sometimes even weeks. This is great for the industry and for the players that enjoy the multi-genre games that are available. But for an MMO, longevity and community are the backbone. Embracing these qualities have allowed us to build what every MMO player is looking for, a place to grow roots, a place to develop friendships with like-minded players. So if you're a traveling nomad and you're tired and you're ready to settle down, we invite you to come home. My name is Malakai and I will show you in detail what Home is all about. We don't have very much time, so let's get started. We have broke the game up into 8 sections. Learning the basics will be the first step, followed by the city, guild, then PvE. We will also take a deep look at how crafting and auction house work in Home. The traditional auction house has received a facelift that we feel most players will enjoy, and then we'll end with discussions on housing and PvP. The basics of the game will start with the realms. Home is built around 3 distinctly themed kingdoms at war with one another over important lands that lie between them. Every kingdom has a main city that works as the heart of its faction, each inhabited by their own 3 unique races. Not only will the differences between the kingdoms be cosmetic, each one will have its own classes, specialization lines, titles, and PvE dungeons. Home is a personality-driven MMO, where you will have the ability to be unique in many areas that general MMOs do not allow. The entire look of your character's armor, weapons, house, and most importantly, your playstyle, are just some of the large aspects you can customize in Home. Later on in this video, we'll give more examples of what this entails and unveil the realm's identities, but for right now, let's keep it simple. Moving away from realms, the next topic is races. We have listed on the screen the races and their subtypes for each realm. At the end of each subtype description, their unique trait is given. This unique trait is a new mechanic which allows one specific physical attribute of a subtype to be passed on to your alternate character. Unlike the usual MMO, not all of the character slots will be open when starting an account in Home. Only one character slot is open per server at the start, but another can be unlocked by completing the PvE storyline for the first time. Once a character completes this task, they are allowed to marry. In Home, players have a choice between marrying another player or choosing from a customizable NPC. This achievement unlocks the next character slot and will determine which unique trait your alternate character may choose from. For example, if I'm a settler human and I decide to marry my real-life friend's character who is a Highwind elf, my alternate character will have the option of adding upwards pointed ears and/or intricate facial hairstyle or accessory. This mechanic is purely cosmetic and will give all players a chance to think of their characters as a family, promoting them to create a legacy of their own. Also, when deciding a race, most MMOs provide an assortment of racial benefits or abilities. We feel having any race-based advantage is something to avoid for many reasons. We do not agree that your class should dictate the race that you choose, nor should it determine the playstyle of the character. An example would be if humans had a racial benefit of 10% to all poison damage. With the rogue class in mind, I would naturally gravitate towards the humans as being my race. This style limits creativity and individuality. We want players to be able to choose any combination of race and class without forfeiting an obvious advantage. Instead, we have decided to give each player attribute points to allocate their starting base stats with. For inexperienced players, there will be a default option that will auto-allocate your character's base stats for you in light of the game's lore. For the experienced player, customizing all your base stats will mean endless possibilities for your playstyle. Never again will the largest races be associated with strength, the smallest with intelligence, or the thinnest with dexterity. And that leads us into the next topic, classes. When developing the specializations, we took the pros and cons of classic favorites and added some new mechanics to promote new and exciting gameplay. One role in particular that we are excited to introduce is the Soul Healer. The Soul Healer isn't a class, it is a style. Every realm will have access to this mechanic and it offers a new outlook on healing. In most MMOs, the healer's focus is mainly on the health bars and being within casting range of their allies. They don't see what is happening in the battle around them. With Home's Soul Healer style, we eliminate the blinders and give the healers the best view of the battlefield. To become a Soul Healer, the player must first be either a Cleric, Druid, or Sorcerer. Each of these classes will have one specialization line where you can find the Soul Healer ability. This ability isn't mandatory, however most of the abilities in this spec line will have dual effects when used while in Soul form. On the screen we will show what happens when a player uses the Soul Healer ability. Here we have a healer and his warrior friend. Before they start fighting monsters, the healer casts Soul Healer on the warrior. Any player that has a healer attached to them is still able to move freely around, and they automatically gain a bonus to the effectiveness of all incoming heals while also receiving a bonus to any buffs given to them by that healer. The healer's health bar will disappear. They will forfeit all movement controls and remain attached until either the healer jumps off, the warrior kicks him off, or they choose to jump to another group member. What we mean by jump is that while in soul form, the healer has access to a second ability called Soul Jump that allows them to transfer from one group member to another, in or out of combat. This ability has a short cooldown and the healer may only transfer to group members within a specific radius. The jump speed is determined based upon the ability level plus a percentage of the healer's movement speed. While in mid-jump, the healer can be disabled. For the duration of the disable, the healer is vulnerable, but once it wears off, they are no longer targetable and continue on with their jump. If the player the healer is jumping to dies mid-jump, the healer goes back to the previous player he was attached to as long as they are still within range. If they are not within range, the healer loses soul form, their avatar reappears, and their controls return to normal. You might be wondering how you will defeat a soul healer. Well, whenever a player that a soul healer is attached to gets disabled in any way, it unlocks the healer's health bar. All the damage that is dealt at this time will be taken by the healer and is calculated using the healer's armor and resistances. The other way to defeat a soul healer is to kill the player they are attached to first, causing them to lose soul form and making them targetable. Allowing healers to piggyback their allies gives them the ability to assess the PvE or PvP battle as it is happening and communicate with their team accordingly. The healing mechanic alone will change the battlefield on all scales, from the one-on-ones to the most extensive battle. The best example would be with the rogue. Home embraces the stealth world by allowing multiple classes of each realm to incorporate stealth into their playstyle. With styles ranging from the classic dual wielder to fighting with a two-hander or magic, any veteran rogue player can play their familiar roles or they can create a playstyle of their own. You might decide to be a stealther that focuses on hunting other stealthers, by modifying the stealth ability to intensify their detection for special opening moves that hurt stealthers only, or by building anti-venom. This will allow stealther hunters to prey on the most hidden of enemies. Rogues are also group-friendly through their bard or minstrel-like specialization. By utilizing songs and chants, this class can enhance the health or mana regen, defensive and offensive stats, and one of the most vital aspects to all groups, movement speed. Retaining the ability to stealth allows for great synergy with the soul healer in building stealther-only groups. By introducing utility classes into the stealth world, stealther-only groups can now find success in areas that were off-limits before. Each realm and home will have some classes that are limited to that realm only. These classes are very unique and will contribute to the identity of each realm. From a double shield wielding tank to a wizard in chainmail and leather, each side will be different in look and gameplay. Knowing what stats do for your character is the next topic. While keeping most of the traditional benefits MMOs give with their base stats, we've also added additional effects. We allow players to increase their movement speed and strengthen their passive health and mana regeneration. The most important addition deals with how crowd control or disables are calculated in home. Most of the slows, snares, roots, and other blanket CC abilities will be given to the range classes. The duration of these spells can be lengthened by increasing the intelligence stat. Most of the stuns, bleeds, and disarms are given to the melee classes. The duration of these spells can be lengthened by increasing the strength stat. These little changes make a huge impact on gameplay. Let's show an example duel between a warrior and a caster. We'll start both off with an even 100 in each base stat. In this scenario, the caster gets the jump on the warrior from afar. He casts Root. The Root's duration will be determined by the level of Root spell plus the caster's intelligence. In this case, the Root spell is level 1 and lasts for 5 seconds. The caster's 100 intelligence adds an extra 2 seconds for a total of 7 seconds. Once the spell hits the warrior, his resistances and strength stat will determine how long the spell will actually last on him. Since the warrior has 0 resistances, but his strength is at 100, he will reduce the root's duration by 2 seconds. This brings it back down to 5 seconds. After the 5-second root is done, the warrior will receive root immunity that will last as long as the initial duration of the spell casted on him before any reductions were made, which in this case would be 7 seconds. Home has resistances for every damage and crowd control type. Adding this allows players to specialize in fighting against any type of playstyle. For example, if I'm a rogue character aiming to mostly hunt mages, I would focus more on the root and snare resistances as well as a few other magic types. Resistances play a key role in how we balance PvE and PvP. This will be discussed further in upcoming topics. For now, we will move on to choosing your character's abilities. In Home, after a character has been created and the player has completed the basic movement and menu tutorial, they move on to choosing a class. Each class contains 3 unique specialization lines. Each line has 15 abilities. Every ability throughout the entire game is obtainable right away. However, the player is only allowed to choose 10 total. They may choose abilities from multiple spec lines, or choose all 10 from one spec line. It doesn't matter. Before the final 10 are selected, however, the player will have to complete a quest from each specialization line, allowing the player to try each ability in possible playstyle. Once the quest is complete, the player unlocks their ability experience bar. This experience is gained by killing monsters or enemies in PvP. Every time this bar fills up, the player is rewarded with an ability point. With these points, players are able to decide which ability to enhance. Each ability can receive up to 100 points, and every point increases the overall effectiveness of the ability. These points are non-refundable and stay with the ability, even when not currently selected. Changing out abilities is available at any time via NPC and will increasingly cost more each time after a certain point in the game is reached. While leveling up the abilities, they unlock a chance to be modified. Ability modification points are given to the player throughout completing the main story. As you can see on the screen, an ability will have different modification options which drastically change its effects. Modifications bring a personal touch to your abilities. Allowing players to modify a single move in multiple ways will create diverse playstyles. A simple fireball can go from a direct damage spell to an area effect spell, and then modified again to add an additional damage over time effect. Abilities are affected by a combination of base stats plus the level of move used. We talked about strength and intelligence already, but as you can see, they also add other benefits to the player. Toughness and dexterity are probably recognizable, but I'd like to take a minute to talk about our changes to haste and our new mechanic, Karma. Haste is a stat that has a very large impact on PvP and PvE. Simply allowing players to gain more movement speed will change the outcome of duels and large-scale battles. If you can outrun your enemy, it will eliminate the food chain effect that is associated with most MMO PvP, and bring in a more skill-based element. Karma is a unique stat that can benefit every class. When a player increases their willpower stat, their karma is also increased, allowing them to enhance more of their allies in Home. Some of the player enhancing abilities can only be casted using karma. The abilities enhancements will be permanent, unless the recipient dies, logs off, or is removed by the caster or recipient themselves. If the enhancement only requires mana, it will have a time limit. With karma added to the game, long duration enhancements will be limited, promoting groups to include multiple players of the same class. Since all classes can use karma in one form or another, monitoring your group's enhancement distribution becomes an important aspect in both PvE and PvP. Resistances will be the next topic. Much like the ability bar, players must fill a separate bar up by killing monsters or enemies to earn resistance points. All resistances start at 0 no matter what race or class. Some abilities and items may increase a player's resistances temporarily. However, a player's base resistances are only calculated by the armor type of the items currently equipped. Once the bar is filled up, the player will decide which resistance to increase by 1%. A max of 40 allocation points is allowed in one specific resistance. These points can't be removed unless the player purchases a resistance reset. We wanted players to have the ability to customize against certain types of damage. For example, if I'm a warrior and having issues with fire wizards because they got a buff last patch, I can build up to 40% resistance against fire damage. If more people hop on the fire wizard wagon and other players build their resistance around that damage type, it will force the fire wizards to adapt and pick spells from another spec line or alter the damage type of their fire spells. For quick and easy resistance respecs, players will have a book that can save a number of resistance configurations to help stay organized. So if a certain class or spec line is giving you a hard time, you will have the tools to work around this problem quickly. The last topic is layout. We have the main city, which is a social hub for each realm. Next, we have the Tier 1 PvE dungeon. This is where players can experience the main storyline as well as earn all forms of currency. Alongside the Tier 1 dungeon, we have the Tier 1 PvP area. This is not located inside the Tier 1 dungeon, however it can be accessed through the dungeon or main city. This is a sandbox PvP zone that will give large benefits to whichever realm can capture and hold the landmarks inside. The housing district will play a vital role in everything the players will do at home, and each realm will have its own unique set of housing options and environments to choose from. If you venture out into the homelands, which is essentially the main city's backyard, you'll see that it's mostly PvP, but also it's where you gain access to the Tier 2 dungeon, which combines PvE and PvP. At the edge of each homeland will be a gate, which protects your homeland from enemies, and it is how you gain access to the island. The island is a very large PvP area and is only accessible once a player has completed the main story. We will dive deeper into all of these areas shortly, but for now, let's talk about the main city a bit more. Learning the utility of the city is the first topic. The main city consists of everything a player needs in order to advance through the game. Here you'll find your class trainer, everything needed for crafting including workstation and material merchants, traveling access to most of the areas of the game, the auction house, and many solo and group questing opportunities from notable NPCs as well as the faction leader. Main cities will be so large that transportation within it will be necessary. For this, we provide two options. Auto horse routes will be available as well as the Royal Guard teleporting system. We also allow players the chance to upgrade their auto traveling options, making them cheaper or faster. Each main city will have its own city condition level, which is an ongoing effect that can benefit or hinder the players inside and outside of the main city. The condition level is based off the cleanliness of the city. Over time, the main city will get littered with trash, infested with bugs and rats, and the buildings themselves will start to wear down. The higher the condition level, the worse the city will look. As the condition level increases, certain things will happen. Players inside the main city will get their running speed reduced, as well as increased delivery time and cost of all auction house purchases and any mail sent through the city or personal house. Also, all traveling costs will increase for all areas. In order to bring the condition level down, players must volunteer to clean it up. For this, we introduce civil servantry. Anyone at any time can become a civil servant, granting them new abilities with which to clean up and maintain the main city. Civil servants are the only people who can change their city's condition level. By actively cleaning up their city and completing daily quests, civil servants provide their community with benefits as well as receive great rewards themselves. Once a player volunteers, they will be given a suit that when worn activates the servitude abilities and allows them to equip the tools to get the job done. Each servant will be given a broom to clean the streets, a crossbow that will put you into first-person view to shoot down unwanted flying creatures, a backpack water gun to clean the buildings, a wrench to help repair the broken down buildings and roads, and a mallet to help with the rodent problem. Each item will have many types of upgrades to take on bigger jobs. When putting the suit on, you will be unable to remove it for at least 1 hour. Your character's nameplate will be removed and the word Civil Servant will appear. Your character will also revert to a default look that every civil servant will have, so in essence, everybody will look the same and will have no way of telling each other apart. Civil servants will also belong to a special chat system. We only allow those who have spent time and effort in cleaning up the city to have the ability to talk and organize large-scale projects. Players who follow this path will find the rewards are well worth it. Discounts on traveling, crafting, and housing costs, having access to rare and unique items to furnish your house, or special designs to alter the look of your gear. Certain level civil servants will also be given the opportunity to travel to other servers and help clean up for extra credit. This is a project that everyone in the realm should help with every now and then. The main city has much more, but we need to move on to guilds. Guilds have always been the best way to develop in-game relationships with other players in the past. They give you an easy way to communicate with other players via chat and often aid with game understanding and progression. Usually, not much more happens after accepting that guild invitation. In Home, we have designed a social tier system that will gradually integrate players as they mature through the game. Most seasoned MMO players will agree that when they reminisce about their most cherished MMO pastime, they immediately associate them with the guild they had belonged to. We understand and love that guilds provide the gaming community with a warm and fuzzy family feeling. When designing this section of the game, we wanted to provide every player with a chance to have this experience, while also encouraging a deeper connection by allowing the players of Home to upgrade their social circles in various ways. To show this, let us first learn how to form a guild. The first issue we decided to tackle was the amount of guilds being created. In most games, any player with 4 or 5 friends and some gold can start a guild. It doesn't matter what level you are, how much of the game you've experienced, or how many members you have. Essentially, after the guild is created, you could remove everyone else and be a guild of one. This destroys the essence of what it means to belong to a guild and contradicts our goal to bring notoriety back to the MMO community. In Home, guilds are not available right away. To become a guild, players must first become a band. When creating a band, there must be a minimum of 20 players. These 20 people become the founding fathers. The cost of creating a band is a flat fee plus an amount based upon the combined progression achieved by the founding fathers. Their storyline progression, PvP, housing, and donation achievements all contribute to the price. The more experienced the founding father, the more it costs to become a band. The name of the band will be assigned by the realm. It will be randomly generated from an NPC inside the city. You could end up with the Band of Oranges or the Band of Steel. We wanted players to earn the right to name themselves. This first step should help cut back on players who lack seriousness about building a guild. A lot of MMOs are flooded with ridiculous, unrelated names that take away from the fantasy experience. Once a band is formed, its members gain access to band chat along with unlocking the requirements needed to upgrade the band to a clan. Next, we will talk about leveling up your band, clan, and guild. Going from a band to a clan will require founding fathers to take on challenges that will need all 20 of them working together to overcome. The founding fathers will be required to have a minimum PvP rank, housing status, band donation, and crafting level, among other things. For other band members that are not founding fathers, in order for them to be promoted into the clan, they must first meet the game's requirements and then any additional requirements set by the band master. For example, a player cannot be a member of a clan unless they have achieved a minimum PvP rank. Band masters will have the ability to increase that rank if they deem necessary. Once a band member's statistics meet the requirements set by the band master and then approved, they will automatically be promoted to clan member. This is to help keep order by not allowing players to simply come in and be promoted to a clan member because they are a friend or a high-ranking person from another clan. Also, the band itself must have the Tier 1 legendary monster defeated with 20 members present. If all requirements are met, the bandmaster may go to the main city and pay a gold fee to upgrade their band. Once a clan, they are able to input one word towards their new name. The name will read clan in whatever word you place. No spaces, numbers, special characters, or profanity will be allowed. Now, going from a clan to a guild will not be an easy task, but it will definitely be worth it. Belonging to a guild in Home will not only show that you're a well-rounded and experienced player, it will show that you're an honorable, dedicated, and serious about who you are and the realm you represent. Upgrading the guild will require the usual donation, PvP and PvE, and housing minimums from the founding fathers, but this time each must have at least one of their crafts mastered. For the whole guild, there will be a PvP rank minimum for a percentage of the members, as well as having to complete a quest that will have them rebuilding and protecting the homeland. Once all the requirements are met and the dues paid, the city announces the newly appointed Defenders of the Realm and gifts them with the freedom to decide their full name along with unlocking the option for a guild hall. They may also choose colors, a cloak pattern, and an emblem. The guild members that have earned the right to display their guild's colors will be able to do so now. Now that we have a guild, let's talk about the guild master options. There will be many options regarding the structure and direction of a guild, most of which is determined by the guild master. They control chat and representation restriction, guild taxes, the guild hall, and also get to assign officers to help recruit and maintain order. Guild masters also choose whether their guild will be a PvE guild or a PvP guild. On the screen you can see each path has its benefits. This will be a big decision for guild masters as it is permanent and will open up new obstacles to overcome. As a guild matures, its members accumulate guild points by playing the game. These guild points are used to determine the level of the guild, plus provide the guild members with bonuses associated with the path the guild master has chosen for them. When it comes to newly joined members, they must first achieve the requirements set for the band and clan levels before being considered for guild membership. The band, clan, guild will all share the same chat, with each player having a symbol next to their name to show what status they hold inside the hierarchy. The guild master will have the power to build officer-only chat and mute or remove chat abilities. He may even tax players each time a guild member uses certain words or profanity, allowing guilds to set a standard if they choose. We feel the players who want to take on the challenge of being a leader in home deserve the options to help build the guild they want. We took a lot of time when considering the community structure of home. With the chat restrictions, there should be no gold spamming or unwanted harassment. And with our instance layout, players will not be exposed to gold farmers or any players looking to grief. They have the choice to avoid all contact in solo play, or they may filter the people that are allowed to join and always guarantee a fun and productive gaming experience. With the guild form, let's get into PvE. We noticed that in most MMOs, a lot of effort and production money is put into building the landmass and attempting to give players the feeling of exploring, when ultimately, this land is wasted in the long run. Most progression areas aside from the end game are completed and then left behind to never be thought of again. We feel that this structure isn't worth the exploration feeling they are attempting to install. Instead, we have decided to utilize our dungeon to the fullest. We've taken out all the lands normally used for scenic traveling routes and areas segueing key questing regions and put them into the dungeons to be viewed and used every time. Home's dungeons will be so big that they will house the main storyline as well as a multitude of side quests and farming zones, allowing the player to utilize this one dungeon to the fullest and giving them a comfortable feeling of knowing the dungeon, NPCs, and storyline like the back of their hand. Each realm will have their own Tier 1 dungeon that will tell the stories of the world and realms. Each realm's dungeon will be populated by the monsters and NPCs from the two enemy realms. Some NPCs will use the abilities and have many characteristics of the realm they come from, allowing players to become accustomed with how to fight the enemy realms prior to entering PvP. Prior to entering the Tier 1 dungeon, a player has the choice to either join an existing dungeon or to start one of their own. A maximum of 20 players can group in any one dungeon at a time. If the player decides to create his own dungeon, they will have the option to keep it public or make it private, only allowing the leader of the dungeon to invite and accept any people looking to join. They also have the ability to kick and appoint a different leader at any time. These dungeons will stay live until the leader closes it or if there are no more players inside. Players will need travel tokens to enter a dungeon or create one. This is to prevent players from bouncing in and out of dungeons. When a player wishes to join a dungeon already active, a personal message will be sent to the leader of that dungeon alerting them that a player wants to join. After the leader accepts, a chat will open up between two players, allowing for the leader to explain what the overall goal of the dungeon is and what the group might be looking for. This should help players find a dungeon that is also focused on the same goal. We allow the leader to create and update the title of the dungeon while within, so the players browsing the dungeon lobby will have an up-to-date description of its current tasks. While inside, the dungeon is broken up into 5 large zones, which can be seen by opening up the dungeon map. These zones affect 3 things: your group, the mob difficulty, and the reward system. Any players that occupy the same zone will automatically be grouped together and share the ability, experience, and currency earned when killing any monsters within that zone. Also, the mob's difficulty is determined by the number of people occupying its zone. Since Home allows up to 20 players, groups may decide to split up and work on different quests in different zones at the same time. As long as the groups are in different zones, the monster difficulty will not be affected. In most games, players would have to reset the dungeon in order to go back to an area already cleared. But in Home, we allow the dungeon to respawn, making it possible for one dungeon to continuously provide all types of groups with quests and activities. Players who loved arcades will find the high scoreboards and time trial minigames to be a nice throwback. While exploring the dungeon, you may find groups of monsters that are in enclosed camps with a book at its entrance. These areas are used for the main story and farming, but are also designed for speed clearing. Players will activate the book and have the option to set up the time trial encounter, setting the number of players and how hard the encounter will be. Once all the settings are right, the players enter the area. This place closes off to any other players in the dungeon. To exit, the group must clear the area or die trying. Once activated, a small amount of time will be given to the group to set up, but after that expires, a timer starts. Scoreboards will be kept for realm, server, region, and world. In most games, you usually have to visit many NPCs to gather quests. In Home, we have saved the players some time by only providing a few NPCs to receive quests from. Players will become very familiar with these NPCs and will encounter them multiple times throughout the dungeon. Sometimes an NPC might provide multiple types of quests. There are main story, personal, and realm quests. Before we explain the quest types, let's quickly go over the currency of Home and the other drops you may receive. The economy is the next topic. Home's economy is very simple. Our goal was to eliminate gold farming and minimize exploitation. First, we have gold. Everyone understands gold. Gold is integrated into all game purchases and transactions. Second, we have our token system. There are crafting tokens, travel tokens, and housing tokens. All tokens will be untradeable and can't be placed on the auction house. They will be bound to the player. Players can use crafting tokens to purchase all crafting materials and use housing tokens to purchase all housing items. Travel tokens will be used in order to travel to any dungeon or PvP land. Also, any traveling routes while in the dungeon or PvP land will cost travel tokens. These 4 coins make up the entire economy. Aside from limiting the powers of exploiters and gold farmers, we address the issue of guilds funneling all crafting materials and high quality items to certain people. These people are usually the players who will have more time to play or hold a high rank in the guild. By making each player responsible for the production of their own items, they can either craft for themselves or craft items to sell in order to make the money needed to purchase better items. For those people who are lone players or only run with a small group, you now have a chance to rival even the biggest guild in producing high quality items. The market is now in the hands of everybody and not those who have the most gold or time. While playing the game, killing monsters and completing quests, players will most commonly be rewarded with gold, tokens, and quest items. Every so often, there is a chance to find other types of drops. You could find the trophy of the monster slain, which can be used towards custom housing items, recipes to learn new crafting designs, souls for creating golems and activating PvE encounters, and enchanted wood or stone, which are rarely dropped, but are used in crafting golems, housing items, and are also in some crafting. Every monster in Home will have a chance to drop all of the currency types. The difficulty of the monster will determine the quality of the items dropped. Select monsters will have the chance to drop souls, quest items, trophies, and recipes. These monsters, when selected, will have small icons displayed around their portrait to show which drops are available if killed. After economy comes the quest system. The main story quest must be completed in order to finish the Tier 1 dungeon. They provide your character with all the necessary ability points and modification points, as well as many housing items and rare drops. These will consist mostly of kill quests, builder quests, and missions. Examples of each are displayed on the screen. Personal quests are quests that will benefit you and your character alone. They are not mandatory for progression and consist mostly of gathering, crafting, and golem quests. Last, we have realm quests. These are quests that may become available once a main story or personal quest is completed. They allow the player to continue on with the previous quest task in order to achieve greater rewards. For example, while progressing through the main story, I come across an NPC named Miss Smith that asked me to please help her clear her apple orchard behind her cottage from direwolves so she can pick the apples to make pies. She also asked for any wolf pelts gained while clearing the area. I go and fight the wolves and collect 10 wolf pelts during the clearing. I then return to her for my reward. Once the quest is turned in, another appears with the same quest title, only this time it is in red, meaning Realm Quest. Looking at the quest again, I see that the task is still to collect wolf pelts, but it gives me a counter for up to 10,000. I can also see at certain intervals of this counter, I can be rewarded with more gold, tokens, rare items, emotes, and overall bonus to in-dungeon reward that I receive once the Tier 1 dungeon is fully complete. Examples of rare rewards are wolf-themed housing locations and items, wolf skins for your armor, the title Alpha Wolf, and one of our favorites, kill scenes. These scenes happen when a player kills another player. They are exclusive to the player who gets the final blow on the enemy. Enemy screens will darken with moonlight beaming down, and the sounds of wolves howling will be played upon enemy death. Later on, players will run into other NPCs that want wolf pelts as well, but they give different rewards, making every pelt collected worth something, and it is up to the player to choose which NPC to give the items to. These quests have some of the rarest items in the game, so if you like to kill monsters, Home's questing system will reward you like no other game has. Certain achievements will display how many other players in the world have it. We wanted titles and achievements to really mean something. We found most players don't care about titles or achievements unless it was hard to obtain. Having hundreds of titles that can be earned by just completing simple quests or exploring a new area amounted to nothing. Home's titles and achievements will be able to stand the test of time. We wanted players to know that something that takes weeks, months, or years to obtain will always be worth it. We want to put to rest the fears of spending time on something only to have it become obsolete due to an expansion or content patch. If you worked hard to obtain a rare armor skin or housing item, you'll know that every person that wants that item will need to put in the same amount of effort no matter if it is now or in 5 years. The next topic will be golems. Now going back a little, I mentioned something you might be a bit curious about, golem quests. These quests include the use of your golem or golems. Golems are stationary companions that aid players in many tasks. They can be used in the Tier 1 dungeon along with assisting in crafting and participating in golem minigames. Each player must craft their own golems. The game helps with crafting the very first one, but for any after that, it is up to the player to gather the materials needed. Every golem needs enchanted wood and stone, as well as a soul to be made. Souls have a low drop rate and only drop off elite monsters in the Tier 1 dungeon. Enchanted wood and stone can be obtained anywhere there is PvE loot and gathering, or can be bought with crafting tokens. Everyone is able to increase the number of golem slots on their UI by completing the main story. A maximum of 10 slots may be earned. When each golem is created, players will have the option of inputting a custom name or using a random generated one. They will also have the choice of 5 realm-themed skins, create its weaponry and armor, choose its first abilities, and also place base stat allocation points. Golems will have strength, toughness, dexterity, intelligence, all benefiting the golem in the same way they benefit your character. Each golem can level up to 100. As a golem levels up, it receives massive benefits. You can keep track of and update your golem via a menu that can be accessed by clicking on the golem information symbol next to the golem slots. As they level, you'll notice increase in their overall stats and at different intervals will receive new ability points and passive enhancements. When spending an ability point, players will have a choice between 10 offensive and 10 defensive abilities, allowing for many possible ability combinations. It is not possible to respecialize a golem's abilities, so be sure to take your time when choosing them. While questing and exploring the Tier 1 dungeon, players will see markers along the ground that when interacted with, will prompt the player to place down an available golem. Markers will not be found in areas meant for farming. For example, one of the golem quests will have you protecting and maintaining a trade route from ongoing waves of enemies. On the screen you'll see this route. Along the route you'll notice areas where a golem can be placed. A player does not necessarily have to be in the same zone for the golem to do its job. Golems will continue fighting even if the owner is in another PvE zone, making golems a very tactical piece when completing long-term quests. Every golem has a health bar and a shield bar. The shield bar will regenerate when out of combat, but it can be manually recharged while in combat by using golem shards. Golem shards are drops found when your golem aids in killing a monster. Each golem collects its own shards, which are not allowed to be traded or used on other golems. There are small, medium, and large shards that can be used for different healing amounts. The health bar of the golem can only be regenerated by using an incubator chamber that is located at the owner's home. When a golem dies, it will shut down and remain in its current location until picked up by the owner. They are no longer playable until they recover their full health. If the golem is only injured, they can still be reused until death. If the owner leaves the dungeon or logs out in any way, the golem will automatically be placed back into its golem slot. You will also find golems in the housing district. They can be used as merchants or as crafting assistants. When deployed at a crafting station, golems are able to store crafting materials for the player while also crafting themselves. Each item in the game will have at least one material that must be enchanted by a golem before the item is complete. They also receive 50% of all crafting benefits provided by the house. We want golems to be a huge part of every player's game experience. They're our way of providing a pet-like experience while we take our time to design the real pet and mount experience we want for our players. We designed such a huge system for the pets and mounts that we had to remove it from the game. This will be a big sacrifice, but the rewards will be worth it in the end. The legendary monsters are the next section. Back to PvE, Tier 1 will have an instance within it that holds a legendary monster. A full group of 20 people is required to take on this monster. Guilds will also have a chance to benefit from additional legendary challenges provided by an NPC in the main city. All legendary monsters will interact heavily with the environment during the encounter, and will have a long list of abilities that are randomly selected. This makes each encounter exciting and challenging. The legendary monster and instance will be different in all realms. After all 20 players have zoned in, an interactive book will spawn, allowing the dungeon leader to customize the upcoming fight. They can alter its difficulty as well as the element of monster, meaning fire, ice, or any other magic types. Setting a time limit is also an option. The lower the time limit, the greater the rewards. This encounter can be done in many ways, and is a great way to learn how to play and adapt as a team. The next topic will change the way you see home. We call it the snapshot. If it's the player's first time completing Tier 1 main storyline, they will be directed to the city in order to complete their snapshot and receive a free full armor set brand. First, I'll explain the snapshot. If the player passes the gear requirements and decides to progress onto Tier 2, after many warnings and informing them that this is a major character crossroad, they complete the snapshot. An armory NPC will record the gear currently worn by the player, which is then accessed every time the player enters the Tier 1 dungeon in the future. Players now can wear Tier 2 gear, so the trade-off is better gear, but you have to move on from Tier 1 gear upgrading. You still have full access to Tier 1 and all that it offers, but you will have locked your gear in. A new snapshot is possible if they take on the Armory NPC quest known as the dreaded Trial by Fire quest. We can firmly say the quest will be grueling and painful, because the snapshot is a very serious turning point in the game. Adding longevity and applying pressure onto those players wanting to rush through the game, we feel this mechanic will help even out the field between the players who have more time to play than others. This will encourage everyone to take their time, learn the dungeon, learn their class, and really get a feel for the game, instead of beelining straight for the end. We designed the Tier 1 dungeon and PvP land to be a world of its own. Tier 2 is definitely a step up, but it is not in-game. All of home is the beginning and the end. During the snapshot, the player's entire set of gear is branded as a set. If the player completed 70% of the Tier 1 dungeon or more, they qualify for a special leader brand. Otherwise, they receive a normal set brand. A normal set brand will open up 3 extra stat bonuses which are customizable, and the player also gets to name their gear set. If the player earned a leader brand, they will receive all the same bonuses that a normal set brand gives, plus an additional PvE only bonus. There are other branding options available to all players at any time, but only the snapshot brand is free. If a player wants to switch out an item that is part of a full set, they will lose the full set bonus. However, they will still receive the bonuses given for an intact armor or weapon brand. For example, if my full set has been branded and I switch out my weapon, I will lose the set and weapon bonus, but still receive the armor bonus. In-home, we allow players to sell full sets of armor on the auction house. The name of the set along with the information of its previous owners and PvP death counter will be saved and displayed for all future owners to see. Once the snapshot and brand has been completed, the player is then gifted with the end of dungeon reward. This is where all your hard work will pay off. Every quest that you've completed, every monster you've killed, plus every other added bonus acquired throughout the completion of personal and realm quests, all add up to a large gold reward. This will happen every time someone completes the last encounter of the main story. The player is rewarded throughout the dungeon for both questing and killing, but the largest portion is saved for the end. This is a huge boost for players entering Tier 2 for the first time, and for those players that may want to stay in Tier 1 for a bit longer, but need gold to go further in crafting or upgrade their house. Tier 2 is the last section of PvE. If you haven't realized yet, we haven't mentioned anything about player levels. This is because we remove them completely. Players will kill enemies and still receive experience, but instead of putting it towards the character, it fills up both ability and resistance bars. There is also no armor factor in Home. Removing the benefit of being higher level than an enemy player, such as being able to dodge or simply not be damaged by lower level players, changes the battle immensely. Yes, the newer player or the player with the weaker skills and armor still might lose, but the player now has at least a shot at taking them down. If successful, the player will receive increased rewards. Without levels and armor factor, the underdog has plenty of room to turn the tables on a much stronger enemy, so Tier 2 should be seen as taking on more responsibility over making your character higher level. We want you to know that Tier 2 isn't your traditional in-game, even though you gain better gear and access to the last areas of the game. Players will go back to Tier 1 to get daily business done and to farm without the major challenges that come with going into Tier 2 dungeon. The Tier 2 dungeon is located in the homeland area. Players will need to run out to the location to access this dungeon. The dungeon is broken up into two big zones. First is the entrance zone. This zone is created much like a Tier 1 dungeon, allowing players to control the flow of who comes and goes. Having few activities or quests, this zone will act as a high-risk, high-reward area. Tier 2 doesn't go by the same rules as Tier 1 with monster scaling. Meant for groups of 5 players or more, this zone will be a challenge that rewards players with 2 to 3 times the drop rate as Tier 1. The entrance zone will use the PvP rivalry system. This is a new system that allows enemy guilds to have the option to increase the amount of damage done to players by monsters in this area by spending gold. The monsters will become more and more challenging as you travel further in. The vast part of the dungeon will be different for each realm, but in the end will all have a portal gate that leads them to the second section of the dungeon. Getting to this gate will be tough for groups with less than 15 players. If your group can make it past the hordes of monsters and kill the gatekeeper, you gain access to the second zone. Going into the second zone will be the highest challenge Home has to offer. This section runs on real time and not a lobby system. It will be inhabited by the strongest monsters and hardest quests. With these challenges, the drop rates have been increased up to 10 times the rate of Tier 1. This zone will connect you with every player from the entire server, including the enemy realms. A melting pot of PvP and PvE, groups will need to work together in order to make it to the end. Now that you know how to obtain rewards, let's show what you can invest in, starting with crafting. With crafting, we wanted players to find the system enjoyable and simple to learn, while having a big impact on gameplay. Many MMOs make this claim, and when you reach the highest ends of the crafting system, you build add-ons or gimmick items that have no practical use. Most crafted items become useless versus monster-dropped items of equal level. Sometimes crafting gives you a chance to make a little bit of money by offering the services of an ability you get from having a high-level craft. But more times than not, these services make the player more money than the craft themselves. These are some of the problems we fixed, so let's dive into the details. Players can have up to 2 crafts, one realm craft and one personal craft. You must first pick a realm craft before you are allowed to pick a personal craft. A realm craft is mandatory and will be either armor or weapon crafting. The personal craft choices are enchanter, alchemist, and scribe. Crafts have 100 levels and gain experience through completing items. All crafted items will require materials that are bought through a mixture of gold and crafting tokens. To better explain, we will show how to build an item from scratch, but first we'll need to pick a craft. In-game, players will talk to the crafting master of the city to get started. For this example, let's become an armor crafter. Right away, I'm given the ability to build every single armor type and armor piece in the game, but I can only make the lowest quality version. Each realm will have multiple looking styles of armor and gear to mix and match for a personalized look. While gaining levels for your craft, you will gain the ability to make better quality gear. Each piece of gear will have one of 4 qualities: low, medium, high, and perfect. I'm going to attempt to make the dragon scale chest piece. The speed that I build the item will be based on my current crafting level, the item I'm crafting, the workstation I have picked, and if I have any enhancements from outside sources. The chest piece will take a total of 1 minute and 30 seconds to make. My crafting level is 1, so the crafting time will be reduced by 1 second, making it 1 minute and 29 seconds to craft. I'm currently using a low-end workstation that decreases the time by 15 seconds, making it 1 minute and 14 seconds to craft. During a quest before this, I was gifted a food item that decreases my crafting time by 10 seconds. After adding all the benefits, it will only take 1 minute and 4 seconds until the low-quality dragon scale chest piece is done. The look of the dragon scale chest piece takes on a low-quality look. Each level of quality increases the visual look of the item. Each realm can build cloth, leather, chain, or plate. As you can see, they add overall resistance percentages when worn. Players have 8 item slots to fill, 5 armor and 3 weapon. Recipes allow you to create higher quality armor, and that's the next topic. To have made a medium quality version, I would need to meet a minimum crafting level requirement and have the recipe learned. Recipes can be found by killing monsters in the Tier 1 dungeon. These recipes will unlock the ability to craft specific qualities. If I had the recipe and decided to attempt a medium quality dragon scale chest piece, there is still a chance of it being a low quality. High quality items, however, have a chance of being medium but have a chance of becoming perfect quality. To make a perfect item, players must have all the recipes of that design up to high before being able to learn the perfect quality recipe. All recipes have a chance to be dropped by every monster in Tier 1. We wanted players to hunt for them and/or trade in order to collect them all. The next topic, item customizing. As we have said before, monsters do not drop gear like in other MMOs. This was a sacrifice we made to empower crafting. When players make armor or weapons, the item that is created will be blank. No stats or abilities are on the gear. It's up to each player to put what they want on the gear. Each item will have 3 pools of points that players will use to place stats on the gear. As an example, on the screen we have a low quality piece of gear that we have placed strength, dex, and toughness on. Once all the points have been used up, players may attempt to put more on the item but are at risk of it being destroyed. The higher quality of the item, the more stats you can place into each pool. The personal crafts are where you can get the defensive and offensive bonuses that you apply to the gear. Enchanter, Alchemist, Scribe are the 3 personal crafts players can choose from. Players may only pick one, like the Realm Craft, and the max level is 100. Unlike the Realm Crafts, players will need to find or buy all the recipes. Let's start with enchanting. Enchanters create base stat gems that go into the red sockets of the armor and weapons. Enchanters will also have the ability to build consumable items that increase the base stats and abilities of the person using them. Alchemists add the orange offensive stat bonuses on armor and weapons. Alchemists also make pots and elixirs that increase the offensive stats of the player that consume it. Scribes enhance the blue defensive stat bonus on armor and weapons, and also create scrolls for enhancing siege weaponry. The Enchanter's consumable enhancements and the Alchemist elixirs will have time durations that can range from minutes to hours. Scribes add enhancements to siege weaponry that can be used in PvP and PvE. You can add fire damage to a ram or increase the area effect of a catapult. Other items are available and they will last until the siege item is destroyed or deconstructed. To make a gem for any of the crafting sockets, you can combine up to 5 chips of any quality to make a full gem. A low quality gem will always be worth 5 quality points, a medium will always be 10, a high will always be 15, and a perfect will always be worth 10, no matter what tier the gear you are socketing. The item's quality sets the amount of points each section will have, so the low quality dragon scale chest piece will have 125 points per section. If I use low quality gems, I receive low stats. Let's compare this to the same quality item but upgrade the gems inside. By using 2 perfect chips plus 1 low chip to build all the full gems, the difference is noticeable. The versatility in the gems show how you will have the ability to customize your gear to fit your playstyle. Let's give a couple more examples of how different things can get. Going from a low to a perfect quality item, using all perfect chips to build every full gem, the chest piece becomes much stronger. Now we compare this to a low quality tier 2 gear with low quality gems. You can see the gear has higher base stats, but the percentage benefits are lower because no matter what tier gems are used, these bonuses stay the same. This helps balance out PvP and the transition from tier 1 to tier 2. Crafters who have the highest level of armor and weapon crafting will have the option of adding additional graphics and particle effects. This can only happen on perfect quality items, and only at the moment of creation can these options be applied. Players will talk to the crafting master NPC in the city to pick out what armor or weapon piece they wish to become a master of. I decide to pick the dragon scale chest piece as my main item to master. I get to pick from a number of additional graphic effects that will change the dragon scale look, as well as a particle effect. I decide to pick the extra scaled graphic effect that adds many more scales and giving it a very heavy and sturdy look. I then mix that with a white smoke particle effect that flows from the chest area. With the amount of options and combinations, gear can really take on different looks. We still have one more option for armor and weapons to discuss. When combining your chips, there will be an option to add an additional chip for overcharging that gem. Each slot has the ability to be overcharged. If you overcharge an item too much, it will break that item completely and you will lose all previously socketed gems plus materials used to craft that item. Overcharging extends the customizing players can do towards any gear item. In a typical MMO, leveling a craft means making large sums of one type of gear or the gear that currently rewards the best experience. Then after the item is made, they either break the gear back down to recover materials for further attempts, or sell it to an NPC for a small amount of money because it is a useless trash item. Home makes use of every trash item and gives it a powerful role. We have built a donation system that rewards players for producing items. The donation system will be the next and last topic under crafting. The only items allowed to be donated are weapons and armor. Donations can be made in the main city or at a player's house if they purchase the proper item. The amount of donation points an item is worth is based upon the item's quality and the quality of the gem socketed, if any. Players will have a personal donation level, a band, clan, and guild donation level, and a realm donation level. Each of these paths will have benefits if you donate enough. Let's say during my attempt to build a medium dragon scale chest piece, I made 15 low quality versions. I decided to donate 5 of them into the personal level, 5 towards my guild donation level, and then 5 into the realm donation. The first benefit I get from donating 5 items in the personal donation line is 1% discount to the rent of my house forever, and no matter if I have the most expensive house or the cheapest, this discount will always be applied and never taken away. The first benefit into the guild line will increase the health and damage of the guards that protect the keeps or structures that my clan, band, or guild have claimed. The first benefit into the realm donation line will decrease the travel costs in the city and dungeons. More benefits will come as you progress through the donation levels. This system will benefit players who love to craft and want to build a reputation as being a great crafter. Players who have donated and helped the realm enough will earn shops inside the city that they can either run themselves or place a merchant to continue selling even when logged off. Only the most dedicated player will have the opportunity to open up a city shop. This ability will take a while to be earned, but it's exactly what we think people who love crafting want, your very own shop that's a part of the city layout. Crafting is one of the sides that drives the economy of home. The other is the auction house. In order to gain access to the auction house, players will need to complete a quest that is given to them at the very start of the game before entering Tier 1 dungeon. Once completed, players will be allowed to purchase and sell from the auction house, but are limited on the amount of items they can sell. At the start, this limit will be 3 items. Unlocking more slots will be based on your sales record, so if you sell items frequently, this means people want your items, and after your 10th successful sale, you will gain another slot. The amount of successful sales needed will increase with every extra slot. Players can earn up to 10 slots. We wanted to cut back on the horseplay that happens with auction houses when players have the freedom to place whatever they want on the auction house, and the only penalty is a small charge in gold. Traditional auction houses have 2 types of auctions, a buyout, which is usually more expensive but is instant, and a timed auction that could last anywhere from hours to days. We have changed the buyout option by making it more like a real auction. There will be an NPC inside the auction house that will take players' items and add it to a list. The list of items will stay on the NPC for no more than 3 hours and will be auctioned off by the NPC. By using a UI add-on that comes up once in the auction house, players can bid on these items for as long as they're available. When an item is being auctioned, the NPC will have an image of the item above his head. Each auction will only last a few minutes, and whoever wins will receive the item via mail. Timed auctions will be the same in most aspects. 72 hours will be the longest duration an item can be on the auction house before being removed. Players will be charged a gold fee to place any item on the auction house, and items sold will be delivered by mail. We kept this the same because outside forces such as the condition of the auction house and city change how much you will pay or how long you will wait for mail. If the auction house is in terrible condition, you may see a 2 to 3 times or more gold charge to place an item on the auction house. The auctioneer doing the buyout items will also charge more and only accept certain qualities of gear. If the city is in poor shape, it will increase the time it takes for items to be delivered to the wagon or mailbox for pickup. The auction house wagons will have options that can be purchased that are helpful. Players can increase their status with the auction house to give them priority, which reduces delay and any charges associated with the auction house functions. Wagons will offer players direct-to-avatar service that will spawn a delivery boy to track you down in the city and give you the items, cutting out all work needed on the player's behalf. Home has another auction house that acts like a black market or underground trade system. This auction house will be located inside the city and works off all the same rules, but the only items on this market will be weapons and armor of high or perfect quality, as well as trophies from the other realms. This cross-realm market will allow players to pick up gear that may have a design that is not available to your current realm, while offering another outlet to get high-quality gear and rare trophies in the game. Players will have another way of selling goods, and that is through housing. Housing ties every aspect of home together, from selling your crafting wares to logging out. Every player will want to invest into a good house. Housing plays two roles, one as being a place to show off what you have achieved through the trophy system or rare housing items that you've built and collected. Second, to enhance your character in every possible way we can think of. Let's first explain how you obtain a house. Before going into the Tier 1 dungeons, players must complete a quest that rewards them with the basic house. Players will have a chance to buy many different sizes of homes, as well as exterior and interior themes. All estates will be player-controlled plots of land that will include a separate instance for the interior and exterior of the home. Players will have the option for themed plots, such as mountain caves, cliff sides, high up in the trees, or deep in the roots. The decision is yours. Each house has a monthly gold charge that ranges greatly between players. Any discounts that you have earned throughout PvP, PvE, donations, and crafting will apply each month. Let's move on to the housing items and what they do for you. Most of the housing items and options are unlocked through the main storyline, or earned through questing and achieving certain goals in PvP and PvE. Players will use housing tokens and gold to purchase most housing items, but some will have requirements such as killing a certain amount of people in PvP, collecting items from certain monster types, or sacrificing high-level golems. Let us start with the basic home, a single-bedroom house. Items come in three categories: small, medium, and large. For a simple example, we will say that the single room can only have 2 large items, 2 medium, and 2 small. I traveled to the housing NPC in the main city to look at all available options. One of the first items players will want to buy will be a bed. A bed is a large item that, when slept in, will increase the gold that players will receive for a duration of time. If logged out for 4 or more hours, this bed gives me a 2% rested gold buff that lasts for 4 hours and remains through death. My second item would be a vault for my armor and weapons. Gear that is placed inside the vault will gain increased damage in PvE. For me to gain this bonus, I will need to place a full suit of armor plus weapons inside for a duration of time. The vault requires the same amount of time as the bed in this instance, so if I left everything inside for a total of 4 hours without being removed, I will gain increased damage to PvE monsters for 4 hours when I place all items back on. Removing any item will break and cancel this enhancement. The next items I buy are in the medium categories: a mailbox and a heater for my house. The mailbox is placed outside and works just like a classic mailbox. The heater for my house gives me a bonus movement speed while inside. The next 2 items are small ones: a bank safe and golem incubator. The bank safe operates kind of like a real bank. We allow interest to build up on the gold inside the bank. The small bank I bought can only hold up to 1,000 gold, and every 15 days it will gain interest. I must keep the gold inside the bank for the entire 15 days to gain the interest bonus. The bonus gold will be put into a separate section of the bank so I can withdraw the gold without affecting my ongoing interest. Better banks will increase the rate of gold earned, but may change how many days players might need to leave the gold inside. The golem incubator will help take care of my golem's health regen when not being used. Upgrading these will allow the golems to regenerate faster and add buffs similar to what beds do for players. Crafting stations come in many varieties and can be upgraded more than any other housing item. Each player will want to buy a basic station for their realm craft. When placing this station down, players will decide if it will be used for armor or weapons. Once decided, players can upgrade the station to do any other crafts for a price. For example, I make my station an armor crafting station, but decide to add the alchemy upgrade. By upgrading this station with gold, crafting tokens, and housing tokens, my armor crafting station now gets a new table attached to it and can now be used to craft anything from the alchemy line as well. Crafting stations will vary in look and quality. Better quality stations will be faster and give buffs and abilities to players who use them. The options for players to make a house that helps them in PvE and PvP or even crafting will be possible. Player homes are a reflection of personal playstyle and drive. Guild halls will be a huge step for players that have worked hard to become a guild. The guild hall is a house that can utilize a large amount of items. Guild halls will have many rooms, but nobody will be able to log out inside of the guild hall except for the guild master. Guild halls will have the customizing that all houses have, plus some. Guild halls will be known for its group crafting bonus. When you work next to a guildmate, both of you will gain crafting speed. Grouping up at the guild house before teleporting into the PvP zone will give additional enhancements. We love housing and want to show every item and benefit you can get, but we need to move on. PvP is the next topic. PvP is a very large part of home. In fact, it's so large that we are cutting most of it out of this video. We wanted to dive deep into PvP, but it simply would take too long. We will be releasing a PvP video shortly after this one. We will discuss how PvP works and many of the bigger options today, but we will be saving most of the detailed topics for the future video. Let's start with how you get to PvP areas. If you didn't pick it up already, Tier 1 will have a sandbox PvP zone that only Tier 1 players are allowed to zone into and fight. When a player that has achieved the Tier 2 rank enters this zone, they will revert to the snapshot they took before leaving Tier 1. This is to allow players who have passed Tier 1 to come back and PvP in this zone at any time without being way too strong. The Tier 1 PvP zone will have landmarks within that players will fight over for bonuses that aid their entire realm. These bonuses range from gaining more rewards when killing enemies in PvE, including gold, to most importantly unlocking transportation routes and benefits for all players in the Tier 2 PvP zones. Let's build an example group and do some PvPing. Me and 9 other people decide to join up and go into the Tier 1 PvP zone. We zone into a battle camp area. This area will have many NPCs that do various jobs. One important NPC will help form groups. One way he does this is by allowing groups that are open to join or need a certain class to be listed for the public to see. This NPC also builds groups by offering up benefits for certain group size. Me and my friends can form a 10-man group known as a rusher group by paying a gold fee, which sets the group size in stone, and an announcement will go out to other players in the zone to let them know that a rusher group has been formed. Being a part of this group gives us a 1.5 times the amount of rewards we get from all PvP action. We keep this benefit as long as we stay at 10 members. Losing one player or inviting more will result in the buff being removed. This rule works with all group types that can be formed. Solo artists, small group of 5, or a giant guild group of 20 will have a group setting that can be used. Now that we are grouped and ready to fight, let's talk about why you should. Players will earn points when killing other players that go towards a ranking system. Each time a player ranks up, they will gain a point to spend. These points are spent on a large list of upgrades that can increase stat points or give new abilities. Fighting for landmarks will be another reason. Taking over shipyards or an underground tunnel network benefits you and the entire realm. Before we can explain the benefits, we need to explain Tier 2 first. Tier 2 has multiple PvP zones. The homelands are essentially the backyard to the main city. This land has the Tier 2 dungeon entrance, defensive keeps, towers, and the door to the island. Each keep will have its own unique bonus plus a general buff that benefits all players in the homeland. There are many different types of benefits, but some of the more noticeable ones would be increased damage in PvE, the increased defenses in PvP, and additional gold and PvP points. The Tier 2 dungeon was explained a bit ago, so let's move to the door and island. The door acts as a choke point that protects the realm from invaders. Realms will need to keep this door healthy and ready for any type of siege attack. On the other side of the door is the island. This is a large zone that has no landmarks or attractions, just an open land for PvP. This zone can only be entered by Tier 2 players. The island and Tier 2 dungeon are the only places players can earn Tier 2 PvP points. The Tier 2 PvP system is identical to Tier 1 system when it comes to the points needed to rank up. Tier 1 points must be used first before Tier 2 points can be applied. What this means is if I get to rank 5 tier 1 PvP and spend those points to get an instant mana replenishing ability, I will keep this ability while in tier 2 PvP. If I spend tier 2 points to get the same mana replenishing ability, I will only have the ability while in tier 2. So an easy way to think of this is tier 1 abilities and benefits will carry over to tier 2, but the benefits chosen in tier 2 do not go back and affect tier 1. Another important piece of knowledge are the effects that taking over landmarks in tier 1 will bring. Conquering and holding the shipyard in tier 1 will spawn a boat dock somewhere on the shores of your homeland that will allow the tier 2 players of your realm to sail a boat into the heart of the enemy's homeland and bypassing their door, regardless of its defenses. The other landmark tier 1 has to offer are the underground tunnels. Whichever realm that controls the tunnels will allow its tier 2 players to spawn in random generated locations in the homeland of the enemies. Giving tier 1 this power will mean that players can find action in both tier PvP zones. Traditional MMOs that have low PvP areas become less active as time goes on. With our system, veteran players will help lead and welcome the new players. Another issue that comes up with most sandbox PvP games is the lack of action when the population is low or the game has too much room in the PvP zones. We fix these problems by adding a map with extremely useful information. The map will show where big battles are taking place, a log of who killed who, and zone bonuses. Each PvP map will be sectioned off much like the PvE maps. Over time, if a zone sees little action, a bonus that rewards while in the zone will start to accrue. Players can earn 2, 3, even 4 times the amount of PvP points and gold in this zone. We did this to help players who don't want to run with a large amount of people, or better known as Zergs. Zones that see too much action will start to have their rewards reduced, helping to stop groups who will camp a location or zone. Balancing PvP is a great challenge to take on, but we found too many issues that have yet to be addressed in most MMOs. Low server population or overpopulation of one side can result in an unfair and unsatisfying PvP experience. Sometimes it can get so bad that players will transfer to another server or switch realms. If these problems are costing the players real-life money in order for them to escape from it, it must be fixed to guarantee a strong community. First, server transfers will be available, but players will lose their house, civil servitude level, crafting level, and all achievements made in the city. If the player has deep roots on the server, they will hurt when you rip them out. Server transferring was made way too easy by other MMOs because it's profitable for the company. In the long run, it ruins the community. Home does have the option, but as you can see, it will not be a simple decision. Realm transfers will not be in Home. Differences between realms, races, classes, and abilities are far too vast in Home for us to let players jump around. This is much easier to implement into a game where the realms or factions are unoriginal and identical to each other. We found that most server jumps happen because the player wants to join the winning team. This is simply just not going to happen in Home. Once again, these options are more of a financial game for the company at the cost of game integrity, so we removed it. Home's PvE allows players to find each other, so low population servers can work together to take on what the highest population servers are doing. When it comes to PvP, we need more than a group finder to overcome population problems. Servers with realms that are at greater population disadvantages versus their enemies will activate a distress call. This distress call can be answered by the realms of the same side on certain servers. Players that are high PvP ranked on these chosen servers will be given the option to move from their home server to the server that is in need. This move lasts for 2 weeks and allows the player to travel to a battle camp that's located in the homeland area. This is where players can safely log in and out of. Visiting players will not have the ability to do anything else on the server but access the homeland and island. We only allow the best PvP players to come and aid the realms in need, increasing the chances of the distress call's effectiveness. A complimentary wagon will be given to the players that travel between servers. This wagon will hold all the consumables and gears players wish to bring with them. We feel it will help with needing to stay for 2 weeks without being able to return to your house to craft more items. There will be a lot more information on this topic in the upcoming PvP video, but for this video we will move the discussion to an important topic for many players, and that's payment option. Payment method is a big topic with most of the MMO community. Many will decide to play a game based on only the payment method. This topic can be split into 2 groups, subscription-based games or free-to-play with a pay option. The monthly subscription fee ranging from $10 to $14.99 would be more of the traditional method, while the new model has people paying through microtransactions that in some form allow the next stage of the game to be unlocked. This allows them to pay as they go, and it gives it more of a customized pay option. To decide Home's path, we asked ourselves who Home was really built for. It simply came down to a style of gamer. These gamers have no age, have no gender, belong to no certain region or economic base. These gamers are a type of person. This is a player that wants a game that has a higher grade of community. They want to log in and know the people that they fight against and with are just as dedicated to the game idea as they are. These players understand how communities work and how people coming and going will never allow for any solid foundation to be built. These players unite in other games, forming the best communities and groups. They are better not due to skill or some sort of edge, but because they have a love for teamwork and understand that avatars or screen names have humans behind them, and having a little respect goes a long way when achieving goals. With the free-to-play method, we learned very fast that we couldn't keep a healthy community with this model. When the player has nothing to lose because it's all free and people are able to have multiple accounts and not worry about being banned or other measures to protect the community's integrity, it waters down the community. These games protect the paying players by offering special areas or gear to set them apart from non-subscription players, but all it really does is split the community. This wasn't a real option for us, but we wanted to have as many options for the players of Home as possible, so we have designed a free-to-play model around the city's servitude system. Players can download a free-to-play version and are able to start leveling up the servitude path and gain minor achievements. They will be given access to a few other areas to help with the production and health of the city. As you remember, we have strict chat rules for the civil servants and ways of cleaning up spammers that should lessen the abuse done by bots and groups who wish to hinder other players' gaming experience. This will apply to the free-to-play version as well. The monthly subscription method seemed to us to be the best choice. Games mean more when you have to pay to play, but as we looked, we noticed MMOs that follow this method have just as bad community issues as free-to-play games. Companies that use the monthly subscription method tend to become stagnant and recycle ideas because the heart of the game beats with how many subscriptions they have. Yes, they make the obvious changes to the overpowered characters and such, but altering the most popular class could result in hundreds, if not thousands of players ending their subscriptions. This dictates where a company will shift its priorities. This issue won't be overcome without serious changes in both the company and attitude of gamers. We know trying to change gamers wasn't a battle we wanted to engage in, so we had to change the way we operate. Home has a multi-tier pay system that rewards players who continue to play after a certain point or unlock the hardest achievements in-game. Protecting the players and the health of the game from the boom and bust in population that cripples or hinders most MMOs, we decided to charge a fee of $20 a month. Players will have many ways of reducing this charge. One way is playing for longer than 1 year. Active accounts will see the charge drop to the traditional $14.99. Players who play for 2 years will see a drop to $9.99. You can earn monthly discounts via in-game by defeating the legendary monster on certain settings or just by killing a ton of people in PvP. Discounts with gold can be purchased also. Passing discounts to those who stick around and play was the best way we thought to go about one of the most important issues that directly affects future content and the overall quality that the players deserve. We hope through this video players can judge if this is something for them. We are very thankful for your time and patience, and if you want to keep up with Home, you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter. Feel free to let us know your favorite parts of Home, or if you would like us to go into further detail on specific topics. Home's website will not be made public until later. At this point, we know that most players have forums or websites they already visit to talk about games. This was also done to help the video be the only resource players need in order to learn about Home. We kept all the lore out of this video, but we did say the realms would be identified, so here they are. Once again, thank you for watching.